The Demon King. Realize. You indulge your subordinates' licentiousness and wickedness. Today, I will completely bury you under this Demon King's city. In midair, a warrior with a silver armor and a golden sword is suspended on a magnificent black castle. The opposite of him was a person with black armor and completely invisible face. Oh! Brave man, do you think that with you and your holy sword, you can break through the body of my Demon King? The black devil stretched out his hand, and on it, there were claws clinging to it. Stop talking nonsense! The devil. Today I will let you see the power of the fourth stage of the holy sword that is the most difficult to achieve in the legend. The moment the brave spoke, he gathered the magic power in his body, and a golden holy light rose from the holy sword, wrapping the brave's whole body into a piece of gold. Looking at the brave all over the body, the devil snorted and wrapped himself in the black magic. Then try it. Brave. The two exerted their strength almost at the same time. At this moment, half of the sky became golden and dazzling, and half of it turned into a quiet night. At this moment, the brave's hand slipped. Wait for the devil. My sword fell. Let me go down and pick it up. The devil's breathing was stagnant, and he almost died of anger. You have to take a weapon to a duel with me, let me wait for you if the weapon is dropped. What else would the brave do without the holy sword? The brave man on the other side was very surprised and said, their brave profession is quite special and has no level. The ability is all in the holy sword. At this moment, he is a weak chicken without the holy sword. Can't even recall his holy sword. However, he didn't feel surprised for a long time before he found a black fist shadow rushing towards his face. Is the Demon King. This guy didn't even give him a chance to pick up the holy sword. The devil! You despicable and shameless fellow! The screams of the brave were suddenly heard in the air. I saw the brilliant gold in the sky, gradually fading, and the black power released by the Demon King's punch directly drowned the brave's body, rushing toward the horizon, and it stretched for thousands of miles. More than 10 minutes later, the black shadow of the fist gradually disappeared. And the brave who opposed the Demon King, he has long since disappeared, not even a single piece of hair was left. Ding! Congratulations on your upgrade! The level has been upgraded from 999 to 1000, and the occupation has been upgraded from the Demon King to. After the death of the brave, a golden light flashed on the body of the Demon King, and such a voice came from his ear. The Demon King seemed to be a little surprised. He took off his black helmet and said to himself, "Hey? Upgraded? Didn't it mean level 999, but the upper limit? And what? What is the class?" The face of the Demon Lord from under his armor is a face with a little handsome look almost indistinguishable from a human. The only difference is that there are two sharp horns on his head. At this moment, this face is full of incomprehension, and the black armor claws lightly touched his chin. Forget it, I don't want to, let's go down and look at the holy sword first. After thinking for a long time to no avail, the Demon King shook his head, landed a little from the air, and flew in the direction where the holy sword fell. On the ground, he saw a picture of blood flowing in a river. This was a post-war picture of their Demon King's army, and the trio of humans, elves, and orcs. Faced with such a scene, the Demon King couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Found it! Suddenly his eyes lit up, and he saw a long sword that was shining brightly and plunged straight into the ground, and immediately landed. Is this the holy sword passed down from generation to generation by the brave? The Demon King grabbed the holy sword in his hand, and carefully examined the long sword shining with golden light. The hilt of the sword is presented in two colors of gold and blue, with a green gem in the center. The blade is about 3 feet long, with a fiery red inscription in the center, and the tip of the sword is purple. This holy sword has a powerful special damage ability to the demon race. Even if the Demon Lord is holding it in his hand, he can feel the pain from the palm of his hand through a layer of armor. This is still the effect after I advanced to a new class. If I have not defeated the brave before, I am afraid that the palm will appear corroded. It's a pity that this thing is contrary to his magic power, it is not something he can control. This holy sword is too dangerous for the demons. Since I can't use it, I can't keep it. As soon as his mind turned, he made up his mind, and the black magic power in his hand rose up, intending to break it. And this holy sword seemed to know what he was going to do, and it shivered. The devil snorted coldly, did not pay attention to it, but almost exhausted all his magic power after the transfer, and shouted, "Disconnect me!" Suddenly, a gloomy magical power soared into the sky, as if it was about to break through the sky, shaking the entire earthquake into a panic. The holy sword in the hands of the Demon King had cracks at this moment, and even the space around them began to be disordered. As if to respond to the collapse of the holy sword, the space in which the Demon King is located has also begun to break and disintegrate continuously. Along with the devil's shout and the explosion of the holy sword, a space-time gap containing circles of black and purple suddenly appeared in the space. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. As soon as it appeared, it swallowed up everything nearby. Even the Demon King and the land behind him couldn't escape the crazy attraction of the cracks in time and space. There is only the holy sword in the hands of the Demon King. After it shattered, it was broken into several pieces, and it flew out in different directions in the world. Wow! The Demon King, who was swallowed by the cracks of time and space, couldn't manage the holy sword that escaped from his hands. He was already unable to protect himself at this moment. Before his entire body was swallowed by time and space, he desperately stretched out his paws, carrying a black magic, as if he had seized the space of this world, struggling, not wanting to be swallowed into this unknown space. Even if he is a Demon King, he doesn't know what is waiting for him in this crack of time and space. He only knew that this crack only entered a little bit, and his body seemed to be torn by madness. Even if he reached level 1000 now, he could not guarantee that he would live an hour in the center of this time-space crack. However, the cracks in time and space are getting bigger and bigger, gradually forming a large vortex of time and space, constantly devouring this piece of land. Even the Demon King's hall not far away can't escape its absorption, and was sucked into it with a swish. Seeing this scene, the Demon Lord finally lost the strength to resist, and when he loosened his hand, he disappeared into the time and space vortex in an instant. And this time and space vortex, after devouring the Demon King who destroyed the holy sword, it shrank quickly as if it had completed its mission, and disappeared in a swish. As if it, the Demon King, and the majestic palace, never appeared in this world. Since then, this Demon King who destroyed the holy sword of the brave in one hand has become a legend passed down from generation to generation in the mainland. 5,000 years later, when Liu Ming woke up again, he found himself still lying on the familiar ground. The ground is a dark clay tablet, which stretches out to connect with his residence Demon King's castle. What happened? Liu Ming stood up hard, rubbed his shoulders, feeling sore all over. On the ground, a piece of armor was broken. This was crushed by the cracks of time and space. He looked at the Demon King's armor that had accompanied him for so many years, feeling a little regretful, and then remembered, yes, when I broke the holy sword before, somehow it caused a space-time fault, and the space crack inside sucked me in. So, where is this again? Liu Ming hurriedly looked around, then his pupils shrank, and he discovered that there was an endless desert outside the Black Land. And his Black Land of Demon King City, placed on this earthy yellow desert, looks very conspicuous. I want to come to that space vortex, I don't know which world he vomited into. Thinking of this moment, Liu Ming dragged his body and walked towards the castle. We must send someone to look up the situation in this world right away. An unknown world is too dangerous for this Demon King's castle that has just gone through a war and is in a period of weakness. The identity of the entrant is detected. Demon King, welcome the owner back. At the entrance of the castle, Liu Ming entered the hall through the magic circle. After a familiar sound of magic, he screamed. The wide castle hall like a lake suddenly darkened. A huge shadow pressed towards Liu Ming. Master Devil! How are you? The owner of voice, but not as stressed as its figure, with a trace of eagerness, an uncle-like voice asked worriedly. Liu Ming raised his head and glanced. What entrenched in front of him was a huge silver-grey dragon with its head on the ceiling. If it hadn't been curled up at this moment, I'm afraid the castle would have been pushed into the sky by it. Liu Ming knows that this guy is 1,000 meters tall, and a castle is not enough for it. The giant dragon is named Afar, one of the 4 warlords of the Demon King's army under Liu Ming's command, the 860 Evil Dragon King. Liu Ming once went to the north of the mainland to fight the world-renowned Evil Dragon King for the expenses of the Demon King army's army. That Evil Dragon King was Afar. Afar is warlike by nature, but has never been defeated. He is an Evil Dragon King who can hardly slaughter even a brave. After all, the power of the Holy Sword of the Brave, most of the time, is only useful for the demon with pure blood. But Liu Ming relied on his own strength to beat him with no power to fight back. After that one, Afar was convinced that he was playing very freely, and then he took the initiative to join his army of the Demon King, and also offered them the treasure guarded by the Evil Dragon King. Since then, Liu Ming's Demon King the army has really grown. At this moment, Liu Ming looked at the Evil Dragon King and recalled the past, with a little nostalgia in his eyes. Was about to answer his words, but a cold snort interrupted Liu Ming's thoughts. Afar, when did Demon Lord give you the right to speak so high? It doesn't change back to your human form. The man wore a red block cloak, silver curly hair, and a single lens. He was young and had some noble temperament. But, Antat, I was injured just now and temporarily lost the ability to transform. Evil Dragon King scratched his head with his silver-grey paw, and said a little embarrassingly. Then get down on your faucet. The man called Anta by the Evil Dragon King didn't tell him anything about his affections. He straightened up and stepped Afar's huge dragon head onto the ground with one foot. Then Anta patted the dirt on her body and knelt down towards Liu Ming very gracefully. Let me show you a joke, Lord Devil. I wonder if you have experienced a decisive battle. Are you sick? These 4 warlords were all seriously injured in the previous battle with the 3-way coalition forces. After being transported back to the Demon King's castle, they almost lost their ability to move, so they failed to catch up with the last battle between the Brave and the Demon King. Otherwise, they must go over to help Liu Ming, even if they sit on the sidelines and cheer for him, that's okay. Well, Antat, just after the war, everyone is very weak, so there is no need to engage in these rituals. Chengzi glanced at Afar, who was stepped on the ground by Antat and rolled his eyes, and then at Antat, whose face was white, knowing that he was on the battlefield and had used up his blood. This guy is a blood clan, that is, a vampire. Without blood, he is not far from death. Even if he is an 850 Level true ancestor. Fortunately, they are not the only ones in the Demon King's castle. It is very easy for Anta to replenish his blood. This is not good, Lord Devil. Etiquette is the most basic performance of our respect for you, let alone messing up the number of generations. However, Anta didn't have any thoughts of backing down on this matter. Liu Ming saw this, shook his head, and stopped arguing with him, but looked at them with a serious expression. Let's not talk about this for now, the situation is urgent. I will announce one thing first. Suddenly, Anta and Afar both lowered their heads, quietly waiting for Liu Ming's words. While I was destroying the Holy Sword of the Brave, why not only touched the space-time vortex? After a pause, Liu Ming continued, and we have been teleported to an unknown world by the then empty vortex. As soon as these words came out, Anta and Afar looked at each other, and no one could see the surprise in each other's eyes. And Anta pushed his glasses, thought for a while, and asked Liu Ming, Master Demon King, is it our entire Demon King army, or only this castle? The meaning of is quite different. Among them, the Demon King's army contains all the power of the entire demon race, and there are many uninjured demon race members, but in the Demon King's castle, there are some defeated soldiers who ran in to heal their wounds. It's a pity, only our castle. At this, Lu Ming sighed. Most of their demons are responsible for logistics work in the rear. Those fighting in the front are only a few elite and middle-aged members of the Demon King's army, and because of the war, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com has already suffered more than half of the deaths and injuries. But Anta was not disappointed. That can't be said, Lord Demon, who can survive that battle and enter our demon's castle to cultivate, but they are all the elites of our demon clan. In other words, we are still carrying the demon's top class this time. The power comes, and the remaining demons can also save precious seeds for our demons, so that they will not be annihilated. Lu Ming nodded in agreement. Just. Antar paused, then said, in this case, we urgently need time to cultivate. It is best to send someone out to check the nearby forces to prevent us from being attacked when we are weak. Okay. The thoughts behind Anta were the same as Lu Ming's. After listening to this, he hesitated for a while, thinking about who would be better. However, before he could decide, Afar in front of him spoke, "Let me go." Afar has raised the dragon's head at this moment, with a trace of solemnity on his face. This kind of thing happened, of course, it is better for them to explore. After all, it is not good to send a 2-week out and be discovered by others. Lu Ming nodded when he saw this. As the evil Dragon King, this Afar is the fastest among them. He will leave after the investigation, which should not arouse the alarm of others. Also, after Afar lay down for such a while, he could almost be transformed again. At the critical moment, he could become a human being mixed in, so he granted his request. Remember that regardless of the strength of the people outside, don't have any conflicts with them for the time being. Before leaving, Lu Ming asked him again. Afar nodded, and he left the castle, turned into a silver light, and went straight to the sky. After Afar went out, Lu Ming felt a little uneasy in his heart. The holy sword that could not be completely destroyed, stuck in his heart like a thorn, making him uneasy. Ordinarily, neither he nor the holy sword at that time had the ability to summon the cracks in time and space. The thing that broke through the shackles of time and space can no longer be said to be an ability, but a rule in this world. Then how did that thing appear? Lu Ming sighed and rubbed his head. Forget it, since I have left that world, that thing has nothing to do with me, so don't think about it. He comforted himself in his heart. 10 minutes passed, and Afar still did not return. Now whether it was Lu Ming or Anta, his heart began to feel uneasy. With Afar's strength, go out to see the surrounding situation, which is just a matter of a few breaths. 10 minutes is enough for Afar to surround half of the world. Until half an hour later, Anta stood up with a heavy heart. When he was going to see for himself, the teleportation array at the door suddenly flashed, and a shaggy black-haired uncle walked in. "I'm back," hiccup. This uncle is Afar's human form. When he came back, he was still holding a jug of wine in his hand, his face was flushed, and he seemed to have drunk a lot. Seeing this, Anta's forehead had a tic-tac-toe. "Afar, I think you are too tired of living for too long. Would you like me to take you to see the dragon slaying show tonight, and then buy you a meal of dragon meat?" "Haha, all right." Afar sat on the ground without fear at all. The two of them are similar in strength, and it is not always true that one can beat the other. Anta immediately raised his foot, and was about to step on Afar's face, but it was a pity that Lu Ming stopped. "Well, you two don't bother, let Afar talk about the situation outside." Since Afar is so relaxed, Lu Ming felt that there should be no threat outside. After seeing Lord Demon speaking, Anta glared at Afar and continued to kneel down, listening to his report. Or the Demon Lord understands me. Afar drank the bottle comfortably and exhaled deeply before saying, "I'm telling you, I've been in this world for a while, and there's no threat at all. Let alone our fourth turn, the first turn, I haven't seen one. That kind of guy. I stretched my finger and stabbed a lot of it to death. The fourth turn refers to the fourth large-scale job transfer, the first turn at level 200, and then once every 200 levels thereafter. People with more than 800 levels like Afar and Antat are in the fourth time, on top of a large transfer. And now Lu Ming, who is already level 1000, is the fifth rank. So weak. Hearing Afar's report, Lu Ming couldn't help but mutter. Did not reach the first turn, that is, it was not level 200, which was lower than the average level of their Demon King army elite. Hi! I even found some guys to ask. Afar waved his hand and continued, I heard that the four most powerful Demon Kings in this world are only more than 200 levels. At that time, I almost didn't slap that person on the forehead. What Demon King? You dare to call yourself a Demon King when you are only more than 200? This is humiliating our Demon Lord's name. If you hadn't asked me before leaving the Demon Lord, don't have any conflict with them, I would have hit the door long ago. Give a good lesson to those little guys who call themselves the devil. However, Alpha paused, glanced at Anta and Lu Ming, and said the most important piece of news he had received. I also compared the history of this world and ours according to their words. Guess what? What the hell? Say it. Anta suffocated Afar. He found that this guy didn't know the point. Afar didn't care about Anta either, but looked very proud. I found that this world is the world that has been pushed back 5,000 years from our time. The Demon Lord, you defeated the brave, destroyed the holy sword and disappeared with the elite of the demon army, happened 5,000 years ago. What? Anta tilted his head and looked at him. It was incredible. Unexpectedly, they experienced something like the time and space vortex, and they could just fall into the original world. The world after 5,000 years. Lu Ming also frowned. The first thing he thought of was the holy sword. Since he was still in the original world, he couldn't escape the holy sword. After all, the situation after breaking the holy sword at that time was too weird. Then do you know what happened to the broken holy sword in the past 5,000 years? Lu Ming didn't know when. He was already sitting on the throne high above the hall, and asked Afar below. Holy sword. Afar scratched his head, trying to remember. He seemed to have heard of this problem, and after a long while, he patted his thigh. Oh! I remember it. I heard that the holy sword disappeared after being destroyed by Lord Demon. It just didn't take many years before it reappeared on the mainland, and this time it became 4, and the brave also became 4, just corresponding the 4 Demon Kings now. After Afar finished speaking, he breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he didn't drink much, and he still remembered everything he asked. It became 4. Lu Ming had deep doubts in his heart. He didn't know what happened to the holy sword, but the threat of this thing still existed in his heart and had never been eliminated. You must know that their demons have been the strongest race in the mainland since ancient times. Their level is higher than all races in the mainland, and no one can beat them. There is only a holy sword, specifically aimed at their demons, hanging on their heads. I don't know how much blood of the demons has been contaminated, and even the Demon King can kill. Therefore, the holy sword has always been the thing that the demons fear most. I have to go out and see in person what is going on with those 4 holy swords. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Lu Ming stood up from the throne. This is what he cares about most at the moment. I will go with you. As soon as Lu Ming's voice fell, Anta stood up from the ground. I don't know if the news given by Afar is accurate. Even if there are no people with more than 1 revolution in this world, you can't travel alone. If you have a problem, what should we do for the entire demons? To do. If it weren't for our castle is now a remnant and defeated general, then I hope you can take an army out again. Lu Ming was speechless after hearing this. What army do you bring? Didn't you hear Afar say that the 4 most powerful demon kings in the world are only level 200? If I take an army out, I am afraid that the countries passing by will have to surrender and surrender. Then I will have to stay there to deal with political affairs. It's fine for me to go alone, and you know my strength. If you meet someone I can't handle, you will go for nothing. Liu Ming said of course. In fact, when he went out this time, he also meant to go out and relax. This devil has been working for a long time, and it is inevitable that he has some yearning for the free world outside. However, Anta still refused to give up. With us, you can at least help you deal with some small things, you don't need to let the demon lord do everything. Of course, if you don't want to take me with you, Lord Demon, you can wait for Shayna to recover and take her. Shayna is one of the 2 remaining warriors who are still recovering from injuries. The entire Demon King army knows that the relationship between the Demon Lord and Shayna is somewhat unusual. As the last of the 4 generals of the entire demon army, she also has a level of 830 strength, and the main body is a succubus. Cough. Liu Ming coughed, thinking, if he takes Shayna out, how can he enjoy the trip freely? So he waved his hand, forget it, I'll discuss this later, you should go back to recuperate first, and wait for you to recover from your injuries. Liu Ming has made up his mind, and when they leave, he will sneak out. By the time the world is so big and there are so many people, it will be strange for them to find themselves. Anta didn't doubt that he was there. His physical condition really needed to go back to cultivate, so he got up from the ground, but he almost fell out before taking a step. Haha, you haven't recovered yet. Let me say that your blood is a trouble. Without fresh blood supplements, this injury is very difficult. Look at our dragon clan. It has only been a long time. The injury has been more than half healed. Afar on the side of smiled at him, then helped him up and put him on his body. Close your stinky mouth. If you give me blood, I will definitely be the first to get better. Anta glared at Afar. Without pushing him away, the 2 of them walked out of the hall like this, one step at a time. Liu Ming looked at their backs and rubbed their heads, feeling that although these 2 people are usually noisy, one is upright and the other is arrogant, and they are quite good match. Then he also walked down from the throne, looked around, and found that no one was there anymore, so he secretly walked towards the door. It's just that I haven't reached the door yet, Master Devil. Are you going out? Suddenly, a deserted woman's voice rang. Hearing this voice, Liu Ming's foot that stepped out of the city gate immediately stopped. He looked back and saw a tall woman in her 20s with a black single ponytail. The woman is dressed in a maid costume, and on her right waist, she wears 2 long swords crosswise. What? It's Lifa, you scared me. Liu Ming breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the visitor. He thought it was the remaining 2 of the 4 generals who came out. Lifa gave Liu Ming a strange look. She didn't know how her little maid scared Lord Demon Lord. But seeing Liu Ming emerge from the castle half of her body, she couldn't help but say, Master Devil, do you want to go out? In this case, Lifa will accompany you out. Before finishing speaking, Lifa felt a pain in her hand and found that Lord Demon didn't know when she grabbed her right hand. Come with me. Liu Ming Sheng was afraid that he would meet other people if he stayed any longer, and he wouldn't be able to leave, so he didn't even think about it, so he picked up Lifa and left. Lifa didn't resist either. I had pity for a mop in her hand, and was thrown on the ground with a pop, and was left in the castle hall. As soon as he left the castle, Liu Ming took Lifa and flew quickly. Lifa, who was dragged by him, could not help asking, Master Devil, where are you going? If the trip is too long, does Lifa need to go back and bring something? Now Lifa only carries some daily necessities. No need. Liu Ming shook his head and glanced back at the space ring in her hand. He thought to himself that it was already a surprise to have life items with him. After all, he was planning to travel out in an empty space. But in midair, Liu Ming suddenly stopped flying, hovering, looking at Lifa in front of him. Lifa looked like she was the kind of beautiful, clean, and neat human woman. Just a little attention, you can find the 2 horns on her head. This is the symbol of the demons. These 2 horns must be removed, and we will mix in with the humans for a while. Liu Ming said as he stretched out his hand, intending to help her pull it out. The horns of the demon race are used to stimulate their potential when they are young, but they lose their function after they grow up. Generally, demon race women pull it out for their own beauty. So at this moment, Liu Ming helped her pull it out. Lifa also lowered her head obediently, so that Master Demon King could do it easily, but she didn't expect that Liu Ming held her hand on her horn, just used a little strength, and suddenly let go. Lifa, let me pull out the horns for you, is it appropriate? Liu Ming gently touched his chin. At this time, he remembered the tradition of their demons. This woman's horns were not just pulled out, usually after they got married, their husbands took it off for them. Lifa also blushed. Of course she knew this tradition. At this moment, Lord Demon raised it up. She whispered, "It's a good fit, it's Lifa's honor to let you take off the horns with your own hands, Lord Demon Lord." This cultist speaks like a fanatical, but when listening to Liu Ming's ears, he doesn't know what to do. At this time, maybe it was windy in the air, maybe Liu Ming had just turned 5, and he hadn't been able to control his strength, and a click was heard from the corner he had just broken. Then I saw the 2 horns on Lifa's head, swaying in the wind, and falling straight toward the ground. Lifa was stunned immediately. Liu Ming was also taken aback. He pulled out half of it and fell off by himself. Whose counts? Perhaps, Lifa is destined to live to be old alone. Lifa's face is unlovable. Just imagine, if her horn is Liu Mingba, then after she gets married, her husband will ask her, "Where is your horn?" She said that when she sneaked into the human camp with Lord Demon, she was pulled out by Lord Demon in order to disguise. That is her glory. But if I said that I fell, it would be embarrassing. Well, this is an accident, don't worry, I will. Liu Ming was trying to comfort her, but before I finished speaking, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com was interrupted by Lifa, "Master Demon Lord, don't comfort me. Lifa knows it, she is in her 20s, and she has never had a boyfriend. The maids in the castle laugh at me every day. Anyway, I just can't find a boyfriend. From now on, I will be as old as a wild vegetable. Let me stay quietly on the street and wait for it to wither." Lifa didn't know when she squatted down, and she was thinking about it while drawing circles. Actually, Lifa, I didn't say that, you are still very attractive. Liu Ming said, glanced at the long and white legs exposed under Lifa's maid's skirt, as well as a deep gully that appeared in the maid's collar when he squatted. This is definitely not what ABCD can describe. Lifa is charming? Really? The head maid raised her head pitifully, as if she was a little surprised at Liu Ming's evaluation of her. Liu Ming nodded, "Of course, that group of maids laughed that you couldn't find a boyfriend. It's just that you are too harsh on them. Find a chance to retaliate against you. Besides, they are not the same as single. Don't worry, if you really can't get married in the future, then come to Lord Demon. But they are younger than me." Lifa was trying to refute Liu Ming this way, but after hearing the second half of the sentence, she immediately stopped talking. After holding back for a long time, she said weakly, "Then, Lifa will still be unable to marry in the future. This way, he can marry Lord Demon King and rank 1000. No, after 10,000 houses, Lifa is also very satisfied." That's it, Lifa is very happy. Talking, Lifa nodded herself, finally smiling. "What did you say?" Liu Ming glanced at Lifa strangely, her muttering voice was too small just now, so that he could not hear him with such good hearing. "It's nothing, Lord Demon." Lifa stood up again, restored her capable appearance again, bowed slightly, put her hand on the sword, and saluted Liu Ming. "Sorry, Lord Demon, I just showed you a joke." Apparently, Lifa, who had recovered her mood, had already shown what a maid should look like. Speaking of being as weak as just now, Lifa really rarely shows it, but after all, she just lost her horns, just like the girl who lost her for the first time. She still disappeared inexplicably. How can she be calm? Like Lifa, he adjusted his mentality quickly and it was already very good. Lifa is all right, but Liu Ming is a bit inexplicable. I don't know what she just said, but since the other party doesn't want to repeat it a second time, he can't deal with it, so he can only continue to fly with Lifa towards someone's place. In order to take into account Lifa's speed, Liu Ming and her flew out of the large desert for half a minute. Speaking of it, the level of Lifa, the maid, is already very high compared to the world 5,000 years later, with 400 levels. As for the other maids, they are all between 300 and 400. After all, these maids have lived in the demon's castle for a long time. Even if they are not responsible for fighting, they should not be too low level, otherwise they will lose the reputation of the demon's castle. But this level is much lower for the main forces of their Demon King army, so Liu Ming Xiao had to take her into consideration along the way. "Master Demon, there is a jungle ahead. Out of the desert, it is a chaotic mountain area, and further ahead is the jungle. Crossing the jungle, it seems that people can be seen." Seeing this, Lifa reported to Liu Ming. "Well, we are ready to go down." Liu Ming of course also saw the situation ahead clearly, and Lifa fell on the cliff on the edge of the mountain. As soon as landed, Lifa discovered the problem. "Master Demon, in the jungle below, the beast level is a bit weird." "Oh." Liu Ming also glanced down, and found that just under their feet, there was a group of black wild wolves, looking at them shivering. The average level of the wolf pack is only level 10. Even the silver-white fur wolf king in the center is only around level 15. In response, Liu Ming shook his head. "It's nothing strange, our castle was vomited by the cracks of time and space until 5,000 years later, and the highest level in this era is only more than 200. He explained to Lifa briefly, and before she was surprised, he raised his foot and walked into the jungle. Lifa stayed in place and digested the shocking news. After reacting, she immediately chased into the jungle. The frightened group of wild wolves, after seeing the two men leave, fled to the mountains one after another. "What?" Just as Liu Ming and Lifa were walking between the jungle, they suddenly screamed and scared away a flock of birds over the jungle. "It's the outskirts of the jungle." Lifa immediately determined the source of the sound, and Liu Ming responded, and the two disappeared instantly. During just a breath, Liu Ming saw the situation at the sound source. It seems that a convoy of herbal medicines was attacked, the wooden truck turned over and the herbal medicine was spilled on the ground. The corpse of a stout man was lying on the ground, and it seemed that something happened. Shasha! Among the bushes of the jungle, a huge claw appeared with blood stained on it. Not long after, a huge lizard of 5 or 6 meters high appeared from the bushes. "Yes, the Lord of the Jungle. Hurry, run!" Those who survived were all men dressed as farmers. Seeing such a big beast at the moment, he immediately frightened his head. It was one of the older people who woke them up and hurriedly got up from the ground. Everyone ran towards the outside of the forest without looking back. And the old man ran a few steps, as if he was thinking of something, and when he looked back, he couldn't help shouting, "Lily, what are you doing?" On the side of the giant lizard, there was a girl hiding at the feet of the lizard, picking up herbs on the ground. "Are you crazy?" screamed old man, glanced at the giant lizard. It seemed that the way was blocked by the surrounding trees, and immediately ran back while taking advantage of the gap. "Follow me." He pulled the arm of the ground, but the girl remained motionless, put a herb in the basket, and raised her head stubbornly. "I can't go. The village saved so much money for this year's medicine picking trip to invite Lord Soldier. If it fails, doesn't it mean that everyone's efforts have failed?" I don't want to disappoint everyone. There were tears in the girl's eyes. As a girl from an ordinary peasant family, she knew how hard everyone in the village had to raise money. I can only blame their village for being too remote, and the soldiers are reluctant to come. Every time they go into the jungle to gather some herbs, they have to spend a lot of money to hire people. Therefore, this herbal collection is at most once a year. If it fails, then their village will lose the ability to treat diseases within a year. You are not leaving yet, this time even the soldier is dead. The old man glanced at the corpse in the car next to him, his beard straightened out of anger. The soldier who had been invited from his village after saving for so long, did not expect to be so useless. But seeing Lily who was still picking up herbs on the ground, he had no choice but to obey and patiently persuade, I know you are worried about the village, but Lily, do you know that your life is much more important than these herbs? Lily is the only pharmacist in their village. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Herbs can be harvested next year. If Lily takes her own life for this, then all the herbs in their village from now on will have to travel long distances. I went to a distant town to buy it. However, this road is farther, and you can't keep from encountering someone more powerful than the Lord of the Jungle. Okay, it's finished. Lily put the last bunch of herbs in the basket. Although most of them were lost, she picked up the most important herbs. Follow me. The old man Limara stopped Lily and urged her to hurry up, but before the girl stood up, the giant lizard behind him shouted, Woo! In a short time, the lizard's thick claws caught heavily on the two trees that prevented it from moving, and with a bang, the two trees broke. Be careful! I saw a half-meter-long tree flying straight towards Lily. Before the old man had time to push her away, he saw Lily next to him, who was directly knocked out by the trunk. Lily! The old man's eyes were suddenly covered with bloodshot eyes, and he seemed to have exhausted all his energy to call the girl's name. Lily also thought that she was going to die. When she was hit by such a thick trunk, no one could survive. It's just a pity that medicine basket. Lily couldn't help holding out her hand, as if she wanted to remind the old man to take that and leave. Puff! Her body stopped abruptly, making Lily stunned. She seemed to have hit somewhere. She turned her head subconsciously, only to realize that she had bumped into someone. Just before she could see the appearance of the people behind her, a warm voice rang in her ears, Are you all right? Lily saw a man who was a bit taller than her, about 1.8 meters or more. The man looked very good-looking and was looking at her gently. No, nothing. Lily's delicate face blushed, and then hurriedly escaped from the man's arms. I don't know why, she was knocked out by such a big tree, and she didn't even hurt her body. Thank you for catching me. Since she has nothing to do, Lily breathed a sigh of relief, and thanked Liu Ming. Looking at this cute girl wearing a big cloth, Liu Ming smiled and nodded. Is indeed the girl he saved. Just now, he secretly helped her to remove the power of the trunk. Lily. On the other side, after seeing Lily flying out, the old man ran over a long time ago. While looking at her carefully, he asked worriedly, Are you okay? I'm fine, Grandparole. Lily shook her head, and pointed to Liu Ming and Lifa behind her, They took me over. The old man named Luo passed Lily and saw both Liu Ming. Who are you? Rower asked, but before Liu Ming could answer, he hurriedly pulled up Lily, Let's not talk about this, we have to go quickly, and behind, the chief of the jungle is catching up. Lily has just experienced such a thrilling moment, and almost forgot, there is still a dangerous monster behind them. You follow me. That monster is going to catch up. You will die if you don't run. The girl hurriedly took Liu Ming's hand, followed her Grandpa Luo, and motioned for them to follow. However, Liu Ming shook his head, saying that there was no need to run. Not only that, he also took out a black long sword from Lifa's waist and held it in his hand. Seeing this, how could Lifa not understand Liu Ming's thoughts, and immediately stomped her feet, what are you doing? You can't beat it. Didn't you see what just happened? It only used one paw to destroy our truck and crushed the soldier we invited. Two halves. Come with us, okay? The Lord of the Jungle has been here for so many years, and no one has ever beaten it. Lily was very anxious to persuade Liu Ming that their village had suffered a lot from the Lord of the Jungle. In fact, they had been spending a lot of money on this monster's head, but no one had dared to take it. Just look at it. Liu Ming didn't mean to be scared at all, holding one of Lifa's two black swords in his hand, blocking the path where the giant lizard appeared. Seeing this, Lily didn't want to leave at all. She didn't want to just leave her savior alone. Liu Ming signaled her to be relieved, and then, within a few seconds, the giant lizard appeared in front of him. Grey-green dry skin, long blood-red tongue, huge claws more than half a meter thick. This thing is indeed a nightmare-like monster for villagers in novice villages like Lily. But when Liu Ming looked at the level 25 lizard in front of him, he was lost in thought. When can an inferior beast be called the lord of what? I remember that 5,000 years ago, the beasts that could be called the lord had at least 3 ranks of strength. Is like the evil dragon king Afar, who was the lord of the north at that time. I don't know if he would be to death by letting him know that there is a 25th level jungle lord who is so close to his name. When Liu Ming held a black sword in front of the giant lizard, the instinct of the beast told it that the people in front of him were very dangerous. The demon aura exuding from Liu Ming's body made the giant lizard only hissing warning. But after all, the giant lizard doesn't have much thinking. After seeing the person in front of him refuses to leave anyway, it can't help but move. The huge solace of the feet rubbed on the ground twice, and then slammed into them with a huge body. Among them, 2 huge claws larger than humans grabbed Liu Ming's body and seemed to tear him in the next second. Broke in. Liu Ming didn't move much, until the giant lizard rushed in front of him with the sharp claws. He gently raised the black sword in his hand. Then I saw that on the plane where the blade and the giant claw were in contact, the grey-green claws broke apart. With the sprint of the beast, the entire giant lizard that touched the blade was torn from the claws to the body. 2 halves. The torn-apart body brushed past Liu Ming, and according to his inertia, he drove a long way out before crashing to the ground. The aquamarine beast's blood flowed all over the ground, and suddenly there was no vitality. Lily and Roll on the side of were stunned. How is it possible? Lord of the Jungle, dead. Lily's face was full of disbelief at this moment. They came out to collect medicine. It was not the first time they met the Lord of the Jungle. Every time a large number of people died, no one could take advantage of this beast's hand. But right now, how could this Lord of the Jungle be cut in half with a sword by the man in front of him? How could he not be surprised? Are you a high-level swordsman? Surprised, Lily couldn't help but guess. The so-called high-level swordsmen are swordsmen above level 30. Villagers like these villagers are no more than level 10. Only at level 10 can they be transferred to the combat profession. After the transfer, no matter what the weapon is, they will be at level 10 for beginners and 20 for intermediate. Level 30 is high level. Seeing that Liu Ming can beat the Lord of the Jungle, Lily of course thought he was a high-level swordsman with a higher level than the giant lizard. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com, Luo glanced at Liu Ming and shook his head. As he was older, he was obviously much taller than Lily. It is not enough to defeat the Lord of the Jungle in one blow. You should be a knight. Roll said. The so-called knight is the collective name for all melee occupations after level 50. Because after level 50, basically fight by magic power, only divided into melee knights and long-range magicians. Knight. Lily was surprised by what Roar said, but still a little bit incredulous. But Lord Knight has a lofty status in the kingdom, how come you come to a place like ours? In short, Luo and Lily have been guessing the identity of Liu Ming, but Liu Ming looked at them with a smile. There is no way, he still doesn't know how the occupations are divided after 5,000 years, so Liu Ming feels a little clouded in their words. On the contrary, Lifa around him can't stand it anymore. Swordsman, knight, these titles are heard in Lifa's ears, they are all words that insult their lord demon. So Lifa stood in front of Liu Ming and unceremoniously introduced, "What do you know, Master Liu Ming, but from this continent?" Before she finished speaking, she suddenly stopped, remembering that they had come to mix with humans. How could they actively expose the identity of Lord Demon Lord? But not to be exposed, she didn't know how to complete the field later, and Lifa was a little silent for a while. Liu Ming smiled softly and helped her out, "I am a brave from this continent." Now, not only Lily and Roll, but also Lifa on one side were dumbfounded. Surprised, the old man seemed to remember something, arched his waist, and saluted Liu Ming very respectfully, "So you are the rumored brave man who came from the west of the village and planned to go to the capital. I didn't recognize the Lord Brave before." The old man was rude. "It is really because of you. This is the first time I have appeared in the village." "Oh." Liu Ming chuckled slightly. He didn't expect that there would be any brave man who would pass this village in the near future. Glancing at Lily's natural appearance, he can guess that it seems that the brave man who came out of the village and will go to the royal capital is already known to everyone. Liu Ming followed the old man's words and continued, "Yes, I am the brave man chosen by the holy sword in the village of Zemian. This time I went to the royal capital. The journey was not peaceful. I heard that there is a village nearby, so I came here to take a rest. When it comes to the brave and the holy sword, no one knows better than the demon, except for the brave himself. This holy sword usually appears at people's hands suddenly. It may be when they are sleeping, or when they are taking a bath. After the holy sword appears, the nearest person can just control this sword. It's very difficult to pick up. This kind of supernatural situation is the legendary selection of the holy sword, and the person selected by the holy sword is the brave. Although the number of holy swords has become 4 after these 5,000 years, the selection of holy swords should not change much. The facts are as he thought." After hearing what Liu Ming said, the old man had no suspicion. "It turns out that you are the brave who appeared in Somaiyan village. Speaking of our village, after hearing that someone was selected by the holy sword, everyone was still very surprised. After all, our 2 villages had come here. I remember that there is no richer than us, but I did not expect a big man like you." While talking, the old man sighed a little, as if he had been to a village in the west. In poor villages like them, even a warrior can't afford it. The village is not without warriors or magic apprentices. It's just that these villagers go to towns for future development, where they can change. As for villages with poor resources, even if they live in seclusion, they rarely choose here. And what is the brave? Those are people who are above the kingdom, and they shoulder the mission of saving the entire world. How can they not feel that such a big person appears in the villages they have traveled to? You can't say that either." At the old man's sigh, Liu Ming shook his head. "Actually, most of the brave people come from remote villages. This is something they all know about the demons. Although they don't know what the mystery lies in, but thanks to the remoteness of this area and no news, their demons have never been able to intercept and kill one. Brave. That's it, the choice of the brave, there is such a saying." After listening, the old man felt that he knew something new and nodded in admiration. At the same time, he became more convinced of Liu Ming's identity. After all, only the brave knew about the brave. It's just that when he was nodding his head, he suddenly saw Liu Ming Kong's waist and his companion's long sword in his hand. He couldn't help but ask, "My hero, your holy sword." Speaking of brave men, the first thing people think of is naturally the holy sword of the brave man, but the brave man in front of him does not seem to have a sword? Could it be that something went wrong with the holy sword? At this moment, Liu Ming has been identified as a brave old man. Naturally, he would not have thought that Liu Ming had never had a holy sword at all. Instead, he attributed the matter to the holy sword. For example, what did he lose? Liu Ming, on the side of, for this problem, has long thought of a solution. I am ashamed to say that something as important as the holy sword was stolen by someone before I left the village. I walked out of the village for the first time that day, and I was not familiar with travel. I went to bed early at night. I didn't expect to wake up the next morning, and the holy sword beside me disappeared. Liu Ming recounted. Lily on the other side was slightly taken aback. It seemed that something as important as the holy sword was missing, and she cared very much. But she comforted Liu Ming, "Nothing, just leave this to Grandpa Vader, and we will definitely help you retrieve the holy sword." Grandpa Vader. Liu Ming glanced at Lily, who patted her chest as a guarantee. He only now knew that the name of the old man next to them was Vader. And Vader saw Lily make a promise for himself, coughed, and said, "This matter can indeed be handed over to the old man." Oh! Liu Ming was suspicious, wondering why Lily and Vader were so confident that they could find the holy sword. Fortunately, Wade explained to him immediately, "From the western village, there is only one way to go. If you don't meet anyone who turns back on the road, then you can be sure that the person who stole the holy sword has come to our village at this moment. The old man happened to be the head of this village. You saved Lily and helped us clean up the Lord of the Jungle. On behalf of the village, I would like to express my gratitude to you. It is reasonable to order the villagers to help you find the holy sword. The old man's only worry is that we'd better hurry back to the village, or let the person who stole the holy sword run away. That would be bad." Liu Ming nodded, thinking, in this way, he could indeed catch the guy who stole the holy sword. That guy is actually the real brave. Since Elder Vader said that from the village of the brave to the capital of the king, he will pass through their village, so the brave will definitely pass by here. At that time, the villagers will inevitably be caught by the villagers. In this way, everything about that brave man will be held in Liu Ming's hands. Facing a brave man who has not yet begun to grow up, it is not what he wants to do, even that. The holy sword will also change its name and surname. In that case, let's go back soon. Liu Ming also worried that the brave man would leave through the village ahead of time. After all, they have already deviated from the road now. You reading www.youcanshu.com went deep into the northern jungle, and still didn't know anything about the east-west journey. He didn't want the holy sword that he was about to acquire to fly away in vain, so he hurriedly said to Vader. Vader and Lily also understood him very well, put on the medicine basket, and led him to the village. When Liu Ming came near the village, he found that it was indeed a poor place. Several thatched huts are sparsely located in the village. Not far away is a long farmland. There seems to be people working in the field. When Liu Ming came in, he didn't find anyone at the entrance of the village, and the mayor of Wide on one side frowned, feeling something was wrong. Although everyone is working in the farmland at this time, today is the day to gather herbs. In the past, those guys were waiting at the door. Why is there no one today? And where did those people who had escaped from the forest before? They just ran away and ignored little Lily's life. Little Lily almost gave up her life for them. Village Chief Vader angrily poked the ground with a cane in his hand, blowing his beard, and said. Lily on the side of comforted him sensibly, "Grandpa Vader, don't be angry, maybe something happened in the village." When Lily was saying this, a noisy voice suddenly came from the village. Lily and Vader looked at each other and led Liu Ming and the others over. When they arrived, they saw dozens of villagers around the door of the thatched house, looking eagerly, and inside, there were a few eye-catching young people who were pulling at a beautiful woman. Depending on the situation, it was obvious that the woman was humiliated and reluctant. "Go away! Let go!" The beautiful woman at the entrance of the thatched house, dressed in a commoner, with chestnut hair hanging straight down, looked like she was less than 30 years old, with fair skin and well-maintained skin, and she did not look like this poor countryman at all. At this moment, she is pushing away the young people in front of her angrily, trying to escape back to her home. Originally today, she was standing at the door, wanting to wait for her daughter to return home. Who would have thought that she would meet such a few strange young people? And these young people started to do things to themselves as soon as they met, and they all revealed their wretchedness. How could she not know their thoughts? If she is dragged away by them, I am afraid that something will happen in the next second that makes her want to commit suicide embarrassingly. But the most important thing is that she clamored for a while at her door, and attracted everyone from the village, but no one was willing to help her. This made her desperate, as if the identities of the young people in front of her were not something that the villagers of their small villages could provoke. Those young people seemed to enjoy her resistance very much. Even though they could pull her away with brute force, they never did so, and they laughed at her on the sidelines. Just when she closed her eyes in grief and wanted to decide her, she suddenly interrupted the behavior of the young people with a shout, "Stop! Let go of that lady!" When Liu Ming saw this scene, he had already come to the side of the few people. He gently raised his hand and touched it, causing them to take many steps backwards invisibly. "Who even dare to take care of my business?" Was pushed many steps in succession by Liu Ming, and a tall and thin young man in the lead yelled somewhat suspiciously. It was nothing for him to be pushed out himself, but seeing that several companions behind him were pushed out without resistance, the young man was naturally full of surprise. How powerful are his companions? He has seen them along the way, almost subverting his martial arts concept in his life. It is such a person who was pushed out by the man in front of him. Who is he? You care who I am? Liu Ming certainly wouldn't answer their questions, but when he first started, he felt something was wrong. Ming, that tall and thin young man, is the leader of these young people, but he himself has no rank. The other young people are at least level 30 or 40. Such fighters are absolutely impossible to see in these remote villages. For an instant, Liu Ming had a general understanding of the identities of these young people. But before he could continue speaking, his thoughts were interrupted. "Mom!" When Lily saw the women in the crowd, she ran in anxiously and rushed into the arms of her wife. Lily turned out to be the daughter of this lady. Liu Ming was a little surprised. He just thought that this beautiful lady was only 27 or 28 years old. Now it seems that she is already 30 or 40 years old. "Lily, you are back." The beautiful wife hugged Lily tightly, feeling like she was left behind. At this moment, seeing her baby daughter again, of course she shed a little bit of excitement. Also did not forget to look at Liu Ming, and said to him gratefully, "This gentleman, thank you for your help." "It's nothing." Liu Ming shook his head, and the village elder outside the crowd was already angry, "You idiots! What are you doing? People in the village are being bullied, do you just stand by and watch? How do I usually teach you?" The village elder blew his beard and scolded them staringly. The crutch in his hand kept hitting the ground, and the sound of boom dong kept ringing in the hearts of the villagers, making them bow their heads in shame. "I'm really annoyed, old man." Seeing that no one was speaking, the village chief couldn't help but exhale and scolded angrily. Finally, some of the villagers couldn't help but explain, "Lord Village Chief, we dare not do it, that's the brave man." The brave man. A word from the villagers caused the eyes of the old village chief, Lily, and Lily's mother to all fall on the young people. Upon closer inspection, there is indeed an unusual handle hanging on the waist of the first young man. Long sword. Even Liu Ming glanced at the tall and thin young man. He didn't expect the brave to be met so easily by him. "Yes. I am the brave Del." The brave man with a long sword hanging around his waist didn't know what kind of danger he encountered, and he was accepting everyone's eyes with satisfaction. He enjoyed the feeling of attention very much. But what he didn't notice was that whether it was the village head, Lily, or the wife, there was resentment in his eyes at this moment. The village head and Lily thought that the man's holy sword was stealing after hearing what Liu Ming said. Not only that, but also dare to use the name of a brave man to bluff. And Lily's mother did not expect the brave to be such a person. It was really blind to entrust the world to such a person to guard. Everyone listen to me. Lily and the others don't take the brave seriously. Others in the village can't. To them, the brave is like a god. They must be in awe, so the old village chief tapped the ground with a stick to make everyone looked over. The brave you met is a fake. Under all eyes, the village chief's words directly detonated the villagers' emotions. How is it possible? The real holy sword is hung on the waist of the brave man. There are portraits in the village. Even if people lie to us, the holy sword will never be. We have seen the power of this holy sword with our own eyes. Even if you are the village chief, you can't talk nonsense. Yes, Mr. Village Chief, we can't arrange the brave arbitrarily, or else things will spread out, our village will have to. After all, the villagers are actually very shameless about the behavior of this brave man, but they dare not speak, fearing that the whole village will be retaliated. But the village chief didn't care about this. He knew very well the strength of Liu Ming he brought, and didn't think he would lose to a few others, so he said to everyone, "Be quiet first, and listen to the old man slowly speaking to you. This gentleman is actually the real brave man. He once defeated the jungle lord of the northern forest and saved the lives of the old man and Lily." The old village chief pointed to Liu Ming and said, but when the villagers heard that he was a brave man, they immediately wanted to refute, but before they acted, they were shocked by the last half of the words of the village chief. What? The lord of the jungle was defeated. In the eyes of these villagers, the master of the jungle with more than 20 levels, that is like a demon king, never thought that anyone could defeat it, otherwise, he would not give it such a domineering name as the master of the jungle. Hearing that the man in front of him could defeat the lord of the jungle, the villagers immediately stopped talking. I immediately believed in the fact that he was a brave man. After all, they felt that only brave men could defeat that kind of powerful monster. Seeing what these villagers did not know, a young man dressed as a warrior behind the brave couldn't help but curl his lips. What, the lord of the jungle? He knows, it is just a big lizard of more than 20 levels, for his more than 40-level swordsman, it can be defeated with one hand. Although the braves are disdainful, the villagers have always been afraid of the power of the lord of the jungle, so the village chief explained to them all the way, from Liu Ming saving them to Liu Ming saying that his holy sword was stolen. They couldn't help but believe in this passage. First of all, the village chief is indeed highly respected in the village, and his words have an important guiding role for the villagers. Secondly, the brave just did something like that, robbing a civic girl, or a wife, and everyone began to doubt his identity. Right away, the villagers began to glare at the brave group. I said, the brave man, how could he rob a married woman? It turned out to be just a thief. A brawny man walked out of the village. With his powerful body, he boldly rebuked the brave and the group. Then, his words were recognized by others in the village. Yes, let me just say, no matter how unbearable this brave man is, he will not brazenly grab someone else's wife. Yes, yet, how could this brave man's taste be so inconvenient? This man must be a counterfeit brave. Facing the villagers' comments, the brave who just came out of the village suddenly panicked. The brave? What's wrong with the brave who likes wives? I am the true brave. Seeing that the brave was scolded a little embarrassed, his friends didn't know how to explain it. After being suspected, the brave himself was extremely anxious. He didn't know how to cleanse himself. He simply pulled out the holy sword from his waist and pointed it at Liu Ming. You fellow! Why dare to pretend to be a brave man? I see. You are the demons, you are the demons. Don't be fooled by this guy. He is the demons. The brave man obviously just walked out of the village, and he hadn't had any plans yet. At this moment, facing everyone's suspicion, he blushed and shouted. The villagers all laughed at this, and didn't believe his words at all. Thought that his identity was exposed, and began to arrange the brave adults. They wanted to win people's last trace of trust. Of course they didn't believe it. Just kidding, people of the demons, can you have it if you want to? This is the territory of the kingdom, even the demons cannot reach into it. Liu Ming chuckled. The villagers thought he was laughing at the brainless fraud of the thief, and only he knew that the other party was right. He himself was really a demon, and his status was not low, but he was a demon king. You guys! For the attitude of the villagers, the brave is also very angry, almost not suffocating to death. He really didn't want to deceive the villagers. Just now, when he held the holy sword in his hand, a sense of danger came from his hand. Although he had never encountered such a situation before, but through the keen intuition of the brave man, you can also guess what happened. The person in front of him is the enemy of their brave, the demon race, and his status is definitely not low. He can feel the holy sword in his hand trembling all the time. Damn it! Seeing that the villagers didn't believe him, the brave gritted his teeth and moved his hands directly, intending to speak with facts. Go to hell! You evil demons! A long sword inlaid with aquamarine gemstones came out of its sheath, and the silver sword light suddenly struck Liu Ming's body. However, what surprised the brave was that the silver holy sword blade slashed into Liu Ming's skin in this way, unable to penetrate it, and at the same time, it could not cause any harm to him. How can that be? The brave man was surprised. Of course, it was not that he could not pierce the body of the demon in front of him. He knew that the demon in front of him was very powerful, and he did not expect the holy sword to penetrate through it. And what their brave relies on is not a powerful force, but the special damage of the holy sword to the demons. Even if it is a demon king in today's world, if he takes a blow from the holy sword hidden, it will probably rot a piece of flesh and blood. If it is a weak demon clan, it will be sucked up directly by the holy sword. The holy sword is so poisonous to the demons. When hit, not only the body will be corroded, but the magic will also be sucked away. But the demon in front of him is under the holy sword, and he doesn't even blink his eyelids. Isn't he afraid of the holy sword? Are the demons so powerful now? The body of the brave man trembled. He couldn't imagine how the brave man would attack them again if the demons no longer fear the holy sword. You need to know the brave himself, but there is no level. The special ability of the holy sword is the foundation of the demons. Just want to kill me? Liu Ming raised his eyebrows, looked at the holy sword that pierced his body, and knew the origin of the so-called four holy swords in this era. Although it is indeed the holy sword, its erosion effect on the demon clan is not as good as before. What's more, Liu Ming is now at the 5th rank. Even if it was the holy sword once, it has no effect on himself. Since you are so capable, let's hand over the holy sword. Seeing the brave man was frightened, Liu Ming didn't continue to talk nonsense. He reached out and grabbed the holy sword from the brave man's hand. At the same time, Liu Ming gently shook the blade of the sword and directly threw out the brave man at the end of the hilt. With a pop, the brave man hit the wall and died. The villagers were stunned, the brave companions were stunned, even Liu Ming himself was stunned. Suffered. Forget that this brave man has no holy sword, it's just a waste of nothing. Sober Liu Ming patted his head, knowing that he seemed to have used more energy just now. But he died, he didn't want to let the brave survive, let alone this kind of scum brave. And the village chief also knocked on the ground with his cane, telling the villagers not to make a fuss. Well, this kind of thief who robs women, steals the holy sword and humiliates the brave man will die if he dies. Don't worry about it. The villagers were relieved immediately. The thieves who committed this kind of heinous crime would only die worse than this when caught in the royal capital. Therefore, they did not say much about the current situation, but rather those comrades who stared at the brave angrily, motioned to Liu Ming that these comrades hadn't settled yet. Liu Ming also glanced at these brave partners, 2 warriors and a magic apprentice, all at level 30 or 40. Such a strong man is generally not a village. It is rare to see the entire kingdom at this moment. But he appeared next to a brave man who had just been out of the village for a short time. This is the terrible thing about the brave. Once he is born, his reputation has not spread. When he is met by the wizards from various kingdoms nearby, he will do everything he can to join the team of the brave. Some are to make a name for themselves, and some are to be annihilated. Mozu contributes its own strength. Like the brave opponent in Liu Ming's previous life, his team has 2 rank 4 powerhouses, which can be said to be the main force against their Demon King army. To sum up, Liu Ming believes that the companions of brave men cannot stay. So he started directly, grabbed these people like a chicken, and threw them into the sky, and they disappeared. Okay, the matter is settled. Let's do what everyone should do. Liu Ming clapped his hands, and with his strength after 5 turns, the person who threw it out didn't know where it was. Even if he threw it on the sun, it was not impossible. Go up and down once at such a height, even a level 50 knight will fall to death. Liu Ming immediately received the cheers and support of the villagers as soon as he finished the work. Not to mention, the fact that he saved the village chief and Lily alone is worthy of gratitude from the villagers. Not to mention his current identity as a brave man, immediately, he was surrounded by the villagers for a lively reception. The enthusiasm of the villagers made it difficult for Liu Ming to resist, but at the critical moment, I don't know who pulled his sleeve and led him out of the crowd, escaped into a room, and locked the room with a click. Gate. The villagers huddled together and did not realize that their noisy protagonist had left. When they reacted, they found that Liu Ming had already disappeared. How about, I helped you a lot this time, come and thank me. When Liu Ming reacted, he found that he was pulled into the house by Lily. The girl was looking at him triumphantly. After all, she helped Liu Ming escape the villagers' siege. Okay, thank you. Liu Ming reluctantly touched Lily's shaggy chestnut hair, and watched her smirk happily. This gentleman, thank you again for saving me and Lily. On the other side, Lily's mother was also there. She bent down deeply and thanked Liu Ming. Last time she thanked her because of herself, but this time it was mainly for Lily. Lily's life is no less to her than to her, so saving Lily is more grateful to her than saving her own wife. It's nothing, it's just a handy thing. Liu Ming waved his hand, watching his wife bend down her beautiful figure, revealing a touch of white skin from the loose cloth collar. He couldn't help but raised his head. Cough, I can't look at it, I can see the indescribable place after I look at it. Liu Ming took. Lily on the side of looked at Liu Ming's appearance and smiled slyly. Since my mother wants to thank Mr. Liu Ming, she can't take out something. It's a pity that our family is poor and there is nothing to give to Mr. Liu Ming. It would be better. You come to be Lily's father? So whether it is saving Lily or saving mother, it is a matter of course. What? Liu Ming stunned after hearing this. Even the wife who raised her head blushed and knocked Lily's head helplessly. Lily, don't talk nonsense. Mr. Liu Ming, you can't stay in the village forever. Lily stuck out her tongue playfully for her mother's teaching. Only Liu Ming seems to have heard something from his wife, and he can't stay in the village forever. In other words, if he wants to stay, he can be Lily's father? Mrs. seemed to react too. What she said was a little bit ambiguous. Her beautiful cheeks became even more red, and she couldn't help but said shyly, You guys haven't had lunch yet, I'll do it for you. She ran away in a hurry. Liu Ming looked at the appearance of his wife running away, feeling a little confused. I felt that my skill points were wrong, and it was difficult to tell the door. I didn't hook up with the beautiful girl as I imagined. On the contrary, I was very popular with my wife. This is not to say that he doesn't like this wife. On the contrary, she looks very good and has good skin care. She looks like she is in her 20s. Her eyes are watery and her personality is gentle. It is definitely Liu Ming's opinion. The best wife ever. It's a pity, after all, he is a wife, and his daughter is so old, he doesn't want to mess around. How is my mother? Seeing Liu Ming's eyes on the figure of her mother leaving, Lily couldn't help but joke. Just as soon as the voice fell, he was violently shuddered by Liu Ming. The kid's family, what nonsense! Liu Ming is really speechless. I don't know what this girl who is only 13 or 14 is usually thinking. Q, I am not young anymore. Lily clutched her head and squatted down aggrievedly. I don't know why Liu Ming and her mother like to knock her on the head. She is not a child. But looking down at her flat chest, and thinking about the two small mountains of her mother, she couldn't help but languish again. Maybe I'm really still a kid. Liu Ming shook his head, not wanting to care about the precocious Lily, but took out the holy sword he had snatched from the brave man again, and examined it carefully. This holy sword is nothing more than a recast from the fragments of the holy sword that he cracked. The green gem between the hilt and the blade of the sword is the real holy sword. The rest are all reintegrated and built with unknown materials. Although the materials are not well known, they are a bit too powerful after being built. Liu Ming feels that the sharpness of this holy sword is no less than that of the once holy sword. It's just that the damage ability to the demons is a little less. Who is it that rebuilt the holy sword? Liu whispered in detail, such a powerful raw material, I am afraid that no simple character can come out. This made him frown, thinking about it carefully, there are really too many secrets of the holy sword. From its appearance to its disappearance every generation, there are word everywhere, even its owner, the brave man, doesn't know. Where did this thing come from, and where did it go after the war? No matter what, as long as this thing is in my hands, I can always find its secret. Since I can't figure it out, Liu Ming won't be embarrassed by himself, gently squeezing the holy sword in his hand, not afraid it will run away. At this moment, this holy sword was trembling in Liu Ming's hand. Liu Ming could feel the fear from the holy sword's body. Obviously, this little thing recognized him. Otherwise, it wouldn't make it so scared. After all, Liu Ming was the one who broke it. Liu Ming smiled, and did not intend to embarrass it, but put the holy sword on his waist and watched it gradually calm down. After he finished looking at the holy sword, the maid Chong Lifa on one side came over. She also followed Lily and the others before. She stayed by her side all the time. When she saw Lord Devil had time, she carried a bag and handed it to Liu Ming. My lord, you reading www.yuyuganshu.com, this is a package left by a group of brave men before. Lifa spoke carefully. Knowing that it was inconvenient to call Lord Luming Demon King outside, she omitted the word Demon King and spoke in a low voice for fear of revealing the fact that the dead man was a true brave. Oh! Liu Ming unexpectedly took the shabby package. Should Lifa deserve to be a maid? Be careful! Even the brave package that he hadn't noticed was also taken away by Lifa in advance. To know if there is anything in the package that can prove the identity of the brave, and it is picked up by others, it will be a big trouble for him. Fortunately, I brought Lifa this time. Liu Ming satisfactorily opened the package in his hand, wanting to see what good things this brave man brought with him. However, to his surprise, when the package was opened, a few gold coins fell out at once. Besides, there were only 2 items inside. Is this brave man so poor? Liu Ming couldn't help thinking. He thought that since the other party is a brave man, there must be a lot of treasures in the package. But if you think about it carefully, the other party is a villager who just walked out of the village. Apart from the holy sword, it is strange to have other treasures. So Liu Ming first checked the 2 items in the package, a ring and a post. The ring is inlaid with ice blue gems, and the magic ripples flow inside. It is not a simple thing at first glance. I am afraid it is a level 200 or higher equipment. I don't know where this brave man got it. As for the golden post on the other side, after Liu Ming opened it and took a look, he couldn't help but wonder, invitation cards? Wedding stickers?